18. Two figures emerged from the tunnel's darkness, their black armor swallowing the dim light save for where the golden spires were embossed on their breastplates. Four nervous prefects trailed behind, swords drawn, brands glowing. Cal exhaled, centering himself. He lowered himself into a combat stance and drew both of his blades. Give me some cover. He didn't wait for Shay. Like a spring trap, he launched forward. At the last second, he planted his foot on the ground, pivoted to the side, and slashed down hard with both blades. The first Inquisitor parried with inhuman speed. Cal's arms shuddered as the blades locked into place. The second Inquisitor reared to strike Cal's open side, but a veil of shadows slammed into his helmet before it could complete its swing. The darkness writhed, strangling the creature's vision as it clawed at its faceplate. Shay appeared at Cal's flank and drove her boot into the gut of the first Inquisitor, sending it sprawling. Not wasting a second, Cal pounced. His jagged blade and dagger slid through the Inquisitor's obsidian armor like it was parchment. They sank deep into flesh, releasing a stench of rot and cloying sweetness. Nearby, Shay drove her dagger up through the second Inquisitor's throat as the roiling shadows faded. She grunted as she yanked her blade free, her footing giving way beneath her. The brand on the back of her hand throbbed, then dimmed. "Jord, take her!" Cal barked as he hauled Shay back. The nervous prefects edged forward, their boots scuffing over the fallen Inquisitors, the last one taking more time than the others. Cal rushed to engage the lead prefect, hurling his dagger into the second's shoulder. The wounded prefect spun, firing a wild gout of gift fire into the ceiling, causing rubble to rain down. A sizable chunk smashed into Cal's already aching shoulder, and panic spiked in his chest as he locked blades with his opponent, the impact coming close to buckling his arms. Heat erupted behind Cal as another blast of gift fire engulfed the remaining two prefects. Their screams echoed as their melting armor cooked them alive. Cal gritted his teeth as the lead sword inched closer to his face. The second prefect regained his composure and lunged, his sword arm held back, readying for a thrust. At the last second, Cal wrenched the jagged blade free and sidestepped. The thrust meant for him impaled the lead prefect instead. Pushing off the wall, Cal shoulder barged the dying man into his comrade, driving the blade deeper. The momentum slammed all three of them into the wall, and Cal's shoulder popped with a sickening crack as he hit the ground. The surviving prefect swatted at falling dust and stone, just as another gout of gift fire plumed from the opposite end of the tunnel, where Quentin was standing with his hands outstretched. Pushing through the pain, his right arm limp at his side, Cal surged up and buried his jagged blade in the prefect's throat. Quentin lowered his hands, and Jord retrieved Cal's dagger before hauling him to his feet. "Your shoulder," Jord panted. "It—" Cal rammed his shoulder into the nearby wall. The joint crunched back into place with a yelp-inducing snap. He slumped to the floor, clutching his shoulder, and glared at Shay. "Get them moving. Now!" Jord blanched. "What? They're dead. We should take a moment to rest and—" A wet gurgle cut him off, and his expression morphed into abject terror. The fallen Inquisitors' bodies jerked and spasmed on the ground, black sludge bubbling from their wounds. Cal's chain scar burned as both Inquisitors lurched to their feet. "Run!" Cal screamed, his voice breaking through Jord's stunned silence. Jord and Quentin dragged an exhausted Shay past the monstrosities. Cal sucked in a breath, basked in the adrenaline flooding his veins, and charged the nearest Inquisitor. His slash took its legs out, and he ducked beneath the clumsy swing of the second that was still coming to its feet. "How do we kill them?" George screamed, stumbling slightly as he dared to look back. "I don't know," Cal yelled back. His right arm throbbed as he sprinted in the direction of his allies. each step threatening to dislodge his shoulder once more. Gift fire hurtled past him. It detonated against the wall directly ahead, pelting Cal with shrapnel. He barreled through, his left arm raised to shield his face. Heat raced up his spine as another fireball arced directly toward his companions. Cal threw himself into the ball's path, swiping at it with the jagged blade. The deflected gift careened to the side, vaporizing part of the wall, the concussive force hurling him to the ground. Cal! Shay tore free from Quentin's grasp and sprinted back to Cal. Shay! The walls! Cal coughed, spitting out a glob of blood that left a metallic taste in his mouth. Bring them down! Jord! Do it! Twin streams of gift trailed up Jord's arm, merging into a vibrant ball in his palm. The air around him thumped, and his arm jerked back as he shot the ball of fire into the ceiling just beyond Cal and Shay. Cal threw his body over Shay as the blast sheared through the tunnel's supports. The ceiling collapsed in a thunderous roar, sending up a spray of dust and dirt. Cal! Shay! Are you all right? Jord called through the din filling the tunnel. Here! Shay coughed, sending the dust swirling away from her and Cal. Cal groaned. An ache throbbed through his busted shoulder, spreading down into his arm. He tried to move his fingers, but the effort only shot pain through him. It could be fixed later. For now, he had more pressing matters to deal with. He pushed himself off Shay, collapsing again the second he managed to stand. His head spun, and he fought the urge to vomit, the jolting ache his retching caused being the only thing that stopped him. By the flames, Cal! Are you all right? George said as he came to Cal's side. Never better. Cal regretted speaking as grit and dust coated his tongue. The subsequent coughing felt like a knife twisting in his ribs. Shay and Jord lifted Cal to his feet, looping his arms over their shoulders. How in Igny's breath did they find us? Jord asked, his voice on the verge of breaking into sheer panic. And how can Cal sense them? Dredge must have sold us out. Seems his speech about reputation and trust was nothing more than a ruse. Quentin mused, wiping his golden bracelets with his shirt sleeve before clicking them back into place, unruffled by the tunnel's echoing rumbles. Cal focused on Quentin's swaying form. Thanks. The effort drained what little energy he had left. Quentin's smirk faltered, just for a heartbeat. Think nothing of it. I'm sure you would do the same for me if you were able. Cal freed himself of Jord and Shay, swaying but upright. I'm okay. I can stand. His body still felt as though it weighed 3 times as much as usual, and the feeling in his limbs was a mix of fatigue and pain. But at least he could still feel something. Pain was good. It let him know he was still alive. Take it slow. Shay held her arm outstretched, ready to grab him again if he faltered. Shay, Cal rasped, his voice still raw. If they found us here. Her eyes widened, her breath hitched. The hideout. The words tore from her throat as she whirled and launched herself down the tunnel, boots pounding against stone, until she was swallowed by the darkness. Cal clambered up the stairwell that led back into the city streets, shoulder throbbing with each step. Morning light poured through the doorway ahead. He braced himself against the rusted frame, ignoring the smell, and scanned the crowd for any sign of Shay. People screamed as they ran, trampling over each other. No Shay. No clues in the overturned carts or collapsed stalls. Cal shoved off the doorframe and into the streets. A terrified worker slammed into him. He barely broke stride, just twisted to see the man stammer an apology before continuing his panicked escape. The ache throbbed through Cal's shoulder as Jord hooked an arm under him. Don't push yourself, Cal. You're not invinci. Jord's eyes widened as he looked past Cal. Cal followed his gaze. The pain in his shoulder vanished. His fatigue dissolved. Only his chain scar burned, pulsing as he stared at the column of black smoke rising in the near distance. Shay, Cal uttered. Ice tendrilled down his spine, and his muscles twitched with nervous energy. Images of his home on fire flashed through his mind. It was happening again. Cal broke into a sprint, defying the scream of his body. Shay was there. He had to move. Corpses littered the hideout's now not so secret entrance. Black smoke curled from their blistered skin. Blood oozed from gouges in their sides. The metal door lay in tatters, ripped off its hinges. Whatever did this hadn't met resistance, just slaughter. Jord and Quentin caught up, both panting. Jord gasped at the sight of the rebel corpses, clapping his hand to his mouth, while Quentin just stared, his glibness gone. Cal lifted up charred limbs and rolled over blood-soaked bodies. Shay wasn't among the dead. He didn't wait for Jord or Quentin to say anything. He darted through the ruined metal door and headed in the direction of the hideout's war room. Signs of fighting marked the corridors. Rebels lay strewn across tables or slumped beneath cracked walls, their faces locked in final moments of pain and fear. Cal checked each body he came across with a passing glance, their lifeless expressions fueling both his relief and panic. The bodies of 3 prefects lay in the war room, shadows clinging to their eyes, blood dripping from precise neck wounds. Their deaths had been quick. Other corpses lined the room, wearing the drab garb of the rebellion's supporters. Each bore similar slash and scorch marks to their fallen allies at the entryway. Quentin paled as he entered the room. This was no mere raid. Cal breathed deep, tempering the heat in his chest. Then what was it? An extermination. An example, Quentin replied, his voice flat. The rebellion is a nuisance the Davins can no longer ignore. George stormed over to Quentin and shoved him in the chest. Look at these people, Quentin! Look! He pointed at the bodies littering the floor, his voice waning as he spoke. They weren't nuisances. They were people. People who believed in what we're doing. People who died for it. And they died for nothing, Quentin replied. The rebellion has changed, Jord. We don't fight for the people anymore. We fight for ourselves. The people don't see us as saviors. Quentin looked past Jord and stared directly at Cal. They don't see him as a savior. Then what do they see us as? Jord asked. Terrorists, Quentin replied, his voice deadpan and serious. Is that what you think? That I'm a terrorist? As long as you're with them, how can I not? Quentin dropped his head and turned away. Then what does that make you, Quentin? Jord tried to keep his voice firm, but grief pushed against his defenses. Quentin didn't respond. He hung his head and walked out of the room. Back in the direction they'd come. George swiped at the tears on his face with an indignant huff, as if to remind himself that this moment needed strength, not weakness. His lip quivered as he glared at the now empty doorway. Cal opened his mouth, but hesitated to speak. He knew that kind of bitterness all too well. Knew words would do little to ease the pain. A cry echoed down the stone corridor. Cal jerked his head in the direction of Barkis's private room. Faint sounds of fighting clanged and thumped in the distance. Someone was still alive. Cal grabbed hold of Jord's arm. Jord! Artie's workshop! Head there and see if there are any survivors. Jord looked in the opposite direction of the fighting, back toward the water channel that ran near the back of the hideout. He turned back to say something, but Cal cut him off with a raised hand. Please, Jord. Jord nodded and made his way in the direction of Artie's workshop. Cal watched him go, grimacing at the thought of what Jord was giving up. He massaged his aching forearm. The chain scar burned at the touch, flooding him with something cold and invasive. He blinked away the black spots crowding the edge of his vision and reached for his dagger. His shoulder buckled, sending a stabbing pain down his arm, like hundreds of needles prickling the tips of his fingers. He snarled, rolling the pain out of his shoulder. He didn't have time to worry about it. He'd fight with one arm if he had to. With a fortifying breath, he tightened his grip around the jagged blade's hilt and sprinted toward the fight. More dead rebels lay strewn across the corridor, their bodies cleaved open from shoulder to sternum. Cal's gut twisted at the sight. What kind of creature had such strength? As he hurried ahead, the sound of clashing swords fell silent, replaced by a guttural howl of pain. Dad, no! Shay's voice echoed down the corridor. The door to Barkis's room hung open. An acrid smell assaulted Cal's senses. His chain scar flared hotter the closer he got, but he ignored it, jagged blade steady in his hand. Barkis's room was Spartan, just a bed, a table, and a currently empty weapon rack. The man himself sat slumped against the bed, clutching a dark red stain in his jerkin, blood pouring between his root-thick fingers. Sweat gleamed across his cut-up face. For a man built like a siege engine, he looked seconds from collapse. A clang of steel snapped Cal's attention to the corner. Shay knelt on one knee, her dagger raised above her head, locked in a shuddering stalemate against an obsidian blade with blood dripping down its edge. Shay! Cal rushed forward and swung at the obsidian blade's wielder, a mass of black armor, the breastplate emblazoned with a golden spire, the faceplate pitiless. The Lord Inquisitor's hand. Cal's blood turned to ice. It had been years since anyone had seen this creature, most rebels believing it to be little more than a boogeyman. Cal knew better. He had a score to settle with this thing. They stared at each other down. No words, no taunts, just a drip of blood from the hand's blade. Where is your master? Cal said in a seething rage. Where is the Lord Inquisitor? Silence. Cal trembled. His vision tunneled. Fatigue burned away as something hot and hungry surged through his left arm. His muscles crackled with energy. Answer me! He lunged, jagged blade flashing. The hand flicked its wrist, loosing a bolt of gift fire. Cal smacked the blast away, rage fueling his reflexes. It quickened him, heightened his senses. It felt good, like breaking free. He swung hard to the right. The obsidian blade parried the blow, but Cal wrenched his momentum into a jab. The tip sang as it struck the flat side of the dark blade. No effect. The hand hadn't moved. Cal growled, attacking low this time. The obsidian blade came into his path once again, and Cal pushed his body into his swing. The two darkened blades screeched as they locked into a bind, jagged edge scraping against sharpened obsidian. Where is he? Spittle flew as Cal screamed. He barely recognized his own voice, or his own thoughts and actions. Cal's arms trembled, his vision frayed at the edges, the darkness seeping in. His rage made him strong, deadly, and pushed him to move beyond his limits. But he was losing control. With a snarl, he shoved the hand backwards. Not wasting a second, he twisted and slashed across the golden spire of the monster's breastplate. Metal split with a shriek. No blood welled from the gash, but Cal had struck flesh. He was sure of it. The hand regained its balance in an instant and grabbed Cal by the throat, lifting him off his feet. Cal kicked and clawed, his consciousness dipping as he fought for every breath. The wall cracked behind him as the hand slammed him into the stone. Then, light. A crack like thunder. A wet snap. Cold air rushed into Cal's lungs, burning them as he crashed to the ground, legs on fire. Shay whimpered as she sagged against the wall, her fingers still locked around the gift arm. The glow of her brand flickered like a dying candle while wisps of smoke curled from her weapon's scorched barrel. A hole gaped in the hand's chest plate, but it moved unperturbed toward Shay, sword raised for a killing strike. Cal, get up! The chain scar split open with a new agony. Beneath his skin, black ichor slithered like a living thing, pumping venom into his veins. His flesh darkened with sickly blotches, and the stench of rot thickened the air. His muscles coiled wire tight, his breathing more frantic, and beneath it all, a voice, a presence. It was ancient and hateful, a thing of claws and teeth that scraped at his mind. Cal! Shay's scream pierced through the fog. He latched onto her terror, brought himself back from the edge. With a raw howl, he flung himself forward, and the world vanished. Hey, Cal, can you hear me? Come on, wake up. Gentle tapping on his cheek pulled Cal from the dark. Artie leaned over him, vials of ointment strewn across the floor. Cal blinked, having no memory of hitting the ground. The last thing he recalled was Shay's shot, the crack of light, and then Shay! He bolted upright, knocking over a vial. Artie flinched, then pressed a canteen into Cal's hands. Shay's fine. Don't worry. Where is she? Cal asked, his pulse thumping in his neck. She's in her room. Said she needed to be alone after. After what? Cal searched his friend's expression for the answer. Artie, what happened? Artie sighed, his shoulders slumping. Arcus is dead, Cal. There was nothing we could do. Cal launched to his feet, shrugging off Artie's attempts to hold him down. Hey, you need rest. Artie, I'm fine, Cal replied. It was true. No ache in his shoulder, no fatigue. The lingering pains in his body were gone. Barkis's room held a different story. The gift arm Shay had used lay shattered near Barkis's bed. The table had been smashed against the pockmarked wall, and black ichor smeared the floor, mixing with old blood. Cal's stomach lurched. He pushed past survivors mumbling farewells to fallen friends, while others moved the bodies that littered the rooms. This underground network of chambers and tunnels had once been something akin to a home. Now it stank of death and loss. A tomb. Shay stood with her back to her private room's door, a needle trembling in her fingers as she clumsily stitched a gash on her arm. You don't have to look at me like that, she said, struggling to apply ointment without wincing. This is nothing. Cal took the needle. Here, let me. Her wound looked ugly, but it was shallow. He'd sewn up worse on his own skin. He worked without comment, noting the bruise purpling her cheekbone. Shay winced, balling her fists as he pulled the thread taut. How did you manage to drive that thing off? Cal asked, half distracting Shay, half placating his unease. I didn't, she replied, turning her head away. You did. Me? Cal's hands stilled. Shay didn't reply. Cal didn't push. He focused on the task at hand, making sure the binding was even, the wound clean. Another wash of ointment, and Cal was finished. As he reached for a bandage, he took note of Shay looking anywhere else but at him. He give you the bruise, too? You, uh. Shay angled her head away, trembling fingers touching her cheek. He's not human, is he? Definitely not, Cal replied with a hollow chuckle. I don't know what he is. Silence dragged between them, awkward, heavy. He scares me, Shay said. Cal clipped the bandage secure, kept his hands clasped around her arm. Me too. His heart thumped as he looked down at his chain scar, at the black veins that squirmed beneath the blotches under his skin. He flexed his fingers, hoping the motion might somehow push them away. I'm sorry for what I said to you. Cal jerked his head up to meet Shay's gaze. She was staring right at him, her expression serious, but not marred with the callousness it had held in the tunnels before. You're not a coward. Cal let out another joyless chuckle. No, I think you might have been right about that one. He sank onto her bed, like he'd done many nights before, sitting alone with her. Only this time, the urge to flee was absent. I'm the one who should be apologizing. Shay sat next to him, her shoulder brushing his. I can't be what you want me to be, Shay. I just. I can't. I know. Neither can I. She exhaled. You're not the only one who's running away from themselves. About Barkus? I'm. Cal trailed off. What was there to say? Barkus had been a hero to the rebellion, a pillar of strength for them all to lean on. But to Cal, he'd just been another Hollowborn hater. Besides, what did someone like him have to offer in the way of comfort? Don't. Shay pushed herself off the bed and handed him a thick, scented piece of paper. We've got other problems to deal with. What's this? Read it. He skimmed through the information. It was an invitation for Lord Udican to attend the matriarch's celebration day. We can give the others a chance of getting out of the city. Her voice was stern and serious. Cal looked between Shay and the invitation, quickly coming to the same realization as her. Slip in, slip out before anyone notices us. Not the first time we've done something we weren't proud of. The matriarch's gala was in a few days' time. No time to debate. No need for permission. He'd give what remained of the rebellion a chance to escape, a chance to regroup and come back stronger. He owed Barkus that much. He owed Shay that much. Cal strode back to the war room, Shay at his heels. Jord had gathered the survivors around the table, passing maps of Eunice's city rings between them, several key locations circled in smudged charcoal. We need to get out of the city now, George said, leaning on the table. No softness or diplomacy was left in his voice. This hideout is no longer secure. Too many of the other cells have gone dark, and the Davins continue to increase their presence in these key locations. The only way out for it is for us to use a sewer network. He stiffened, adjusting his collar. And pray we don't get caught. That won't work. Cal stepped forward. Dredge sold us out, remember? If you go down there, the best thing you can hope for is a quick death. Artie shifted beside Jord, sweat glazed hair pushed back, soot streaking his cheeks. his leather armor pockmarked with fresh burns. He met Cal's gaze with a tired, grim smile. Behind him, several of his assistants stood hollow eyed, some supporting the weight of others. Carell was absent from their number. George's usual neatness had unraveled. His shirt hung loose, his hair unkempt.
We can't stay here, Cal. You drove off the hand, but that thing will be back. Likely with reinforcements.
Murmurs rippled through the survivors.
Thing's unhuman,
Someone muttered. Cal ignored them. You're right. You all need to leave the city. But you can't do that while the Davins are hunting you. You'll need something big to make them look the other way. He paced over to Jord, palmed Lord Utican's invitation into his hands, and watched Jord's eyes widen. The whispers died as Cal turned. Make no mistake, the Davins will spin this purge to their advantage. As justice. Quentin was right. The people don't cheer for us. They see us as terrorists. They fear us. He let that sink in. I say we use that fear.
How?
A rebel scoffed. Simple. Cal snatched the invitation from Jord and slammed it onto the table. I'm going to kill the matriarch.